Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how I use Tyshawn Jones' Ollie technique to help me increase my Ollie by 6 inches. And I'm not capping at all. Here's a clip of me a few months ago. I made an edit on this Keen Ramps Flatbar, and I was struggling to even Ollie over this flat bar at the highest setting, and the highest setting is not tall at all. If anybody needs help getting more pop, it's me. So that's what I decided I wanted to do, was study Tyshawn Jones' Ollie technique and figure out how I could then use it to increase my pop. And I'll be honest, I was really shocked by the results. So everybody knows Tyshawn Jones has insane pop. The dude is ollieing over trash cans like they're a curb, ollied over like a $5 million Ferrari. He is like the Ollie guy, the big pop guy in skateboarding. But I know what some of you guys are gonna say. Tyshawn Jones is like 6 foot something, super lean, very athletic. How are you gonna say that you can copy that when you just can't copy somebody's like athletic ability? So just to address that right off the bat, there are a ton of NBA players that have a higher vertical and have more athletic potential than Tyshawn Jones, but you do not see them ollieing over even a twig, let alone a Ferrari. And that's because no matter how much athletic potential you have, if you don't have the technique to be able to harness that athletic potential, you're not getting that board off the ground. It's as simple as that. So I identified that there are 10 techniques that Tyshawn Jones is using to be able to lift his board in the air and ollie to his full athletic potential. So I decided I was gonna try and copy these 10 techniques to see if it could help me increase my ollie. Now 10 is a big number. There's not enough time in this video to cover all 10. So if you wanna hear the full explanation of the 10 techniques that Tyshawn uses, I'm gonna do that on Patreon. I'll link that in the description. Today we're gonna cover the big 3. These are the techniques that surprised me the most out of all the Tyshawn techniques, and I feel like they're the ones that really helped me to improve my ollie in literally one session. So the first technique that I noticed Tyshawn was doing had to do with his foot position. So if you look at Tyshawn's back foot, he places his back foot in the corner of the tail. I've seen people do this. I never really knew why. For me, I just put my feet right in the middle of the board. But as I kept watching Tyshawn's ollies, I noticed he always set up for his ollie with his back foot on the corner of the tail. So I started to ask myself, why would this make a difference? Why does Tyshawn have this preference? And how does that relate to ollieing higher? The best theory that I could come up with was that when you put your foot on the board, your front foot covers the middle of the board as well as the heel edge. So that's where all your weight is distributed, from the middle towards the heel side. So since there's more weight or more tension on that half of the board, placing your back foot on that half of the tail, I believe, allows Tyshawn to channel more tension than if you were to just put your feet straight in the middle of the board. And in a second, I'll show you how I went about testing it. The second technique has to do with where his tail hits in relation with his body. So if you look at his tail when it hits the ground, his tail is hitting the ground right here and his body is over here. So his body is already in front of his tail. His tail is like behind him when it's actually hitting the ground. So similar to like when you do a nollie and you push the board forward to get the tail in position for your back foot to pull it up, Tyshawn does that with the ollie. He pushes the board backwards so that when the tail hits, the tail is behind him, allowing him to have more leverage to pull the board up with him in the air. I've known that pro skaters do this. I, in fact, use this technique myself, but never to the extent that Tyshawn does, where he's literally popping the board behind him. Like he's leaving the board almost like in the dust and then pulling it back forward. I've never seen somebody who exaggerates that technique to this extreme. Now the third and final technique is how Tyshawn tucks his knees, specifically his back knee. If you look at this photo of Tyshawn ollieing over the Ferrari, you can see his back knee is literally touching his ear. I've never seen somebody tweak their ollie to the extent that their knee is literally touching their head. But these are the sort of over-exaggerated techniques done perfectly that I believe allow Tyshawn to have a freakishly high ollie height. So now let's see how these techniques worked for me as I tried applying them. So when I first tried putting my foot in the corner, it was really uncomfortable and it definitely threw me off for the first few times. But the more that I did it, I noticed that the pop sound changed. Like, I don't know what else to say except for it sounded different and it felt crisper. And then when I combined that with the second technique, which is popping backwards and trying to pop the tail behind your body and then pull it with you, all of a sudden I felt like the board was sticking to my feet in an entirely different way. Like I had way more control putting my foot over in that corner and then popping backwards. So at this point, I then put the rail on the lowest setting, but put it on top of the manual pad at the park. Then from there, I ollied it using the same two techniques and pretty comfortably was able to raise it back to the highest height. But then it came time to, again, take the rail completely out, put the bolts in the highest setting and set that rail on top. At this point, we are 6 inches over my highest ollie. And at this point, I'm like thinking in my head, like, what is going on? How am I ollieing this high? This is where things got really dicey. I started to get scared. And this is where the third and final technique comes into play, which is tucking that back knee up towards your back ear. I was really struggling to keep the board underneath me because I felt like I was gonna hang up every time. And I had a few good attempts, but then the idea of Tyshawn lifting that back knee up to his ear came back into my head. And as soon as I started combining all the techniques together and really focusing on having the pop help me to get the position of the back knee up towards my ear, all of a sudden everything just like clicked. My body was moving like so efficiently that I was able to pull the board up into the air and feel a lot more control, which gave me confidence to sit in there, tuck my knees, and wait until I cleared the bar. Within a few tries of thinking about tucking that back knee, I got the ollie to go down a couple times. The first time I think I nicked the rail a little bit, so I wanted to redo it. But ultimately, I was super hyped, and now I can say that using Tyshawn Jones' ollie technique legitimately increased my ollie height by at least 6 inches in literally just one session. So if you feel like those tips and techniques helped you, you can check out the full version of this video, which is on Patreon. I'll leave the link in the description. Like I said, these are just 3 techniques out of the 10 that I learned from studying Tyshawn's ollie technique. And not only are these techniques going to help your ollie, but since the ollie is the fundamental of almost everything in skateboarding, whatever improvements you make in your ollie are going to then bleed over to every single other area of your skating. So I definitely recommend checking out that video. Appreciate your guys' support. Remember to make every single day a Friday, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.